think that one of my biggest challenges when I go to watch movies, mostly in comic book movies, is that sometimes I go kind of with a fresh mind. Some of the comics that I usually don't read or miss or something like that. This is why, unlike many people, I think I I think I didn't have either high expectations or low expectations to today's movie, Hellboy. I because I never read the Hellboy comic books. Hell, I didn't even saw the Guillermo del Toro films. Not because I didn't want it to, but mostly because I didn't have time, or it didn't kind of spark my 100% interest. I've been hearing that the Hellboy movies are pretty good. So, I only know very, very, very little from Hellboy. The only thing that I know is that he's technically a punching badass paranormal investigator. But the big difference is that he's a demon. Oh, he's a big demon that basically that's it. He has a giant fist. He has broken horns that kind of grow fire. But this is just kind of like a big speculation for me. So I kind of forgive anyone who, maybe this review will come up as a little bit of someone who got recently introduced little by little of the Hellboy mythos. But man, that one of the biggest surprises that I had this year is that the Hellboy trailer of this year had a lot of negative attention, and so much that many people dislike it. When I saw the trailer, I mostly could see why, because the trailer didn't do so many favors. I mean, the CGI really looked not, let's say, subpar, not exactly kind of like giant bombastic like any people will want to see in a movie theater of this caliber. But kind of the little old me kind of felt forgiving, in a sense, because maybe I can bypass the CGI stuff and all this. But then the day finally come. I went to watch the movie, and I did, and man, that before I tell you what do I think about the movie, this movie has a lot of negative attention. Many people hate it. Little people love it. Some little people feel okay with it, but the majority of the people really, really dislike it so much that probably it's now not probably at Rotten Tomatoes it's kind of like 10%. But why do I care? I don't even like Rotten Tomatoes. I don't trust it, because I mean, people kind of forgot that we had to deal with this bullshit with the Captain Marvel thing. So, without any inspiration from any critic, reviewer, or any of the reviewing websites, I'm gonna say that as a guy who is a little bit forgiving and sometimes misses the point some other times, I'll say this is my honest opinion of Hellboy. It's bad. Yes, the movie is bad, but so far it's not as bad as many other movies that I have seen. Because coming from a guy who survived Show Dogs last year, or watched Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Michael Bay movies, or Goosebumps, I hardly could say that this is 10% Rotten Tomato worthy. because there are some things that I actually appreciate in Hellboy, but but let's face it, I've been hearing that this movie came from development hell. It had a big development hell, and I heard rumors that it had a lot of studio interference, something like that, from what I've been hearing. And it shows. The movie script and the pacing of the storylines, some of the elements that happen in this movie is really bad. It's so messy. It's not as messy or cringy as Wonder Park, let's say. It's not as super directionless like Wonder Park. It's not like that. But it's kind of close to that, I'll say. So take this kind of like your live-action version of of the Wonder Park script. The only difference is that at least in Hellboy, they at least have a director, which is none other than Neil Marshall. I think that was the name of the guy. Hold on a second, I think I got it. Yeah, Neil Marshall. Sorry, is that when I thought about Neil Marshall, it kinda also shares the same name of this Phoenix Wright character. And you know what? I like that director. He made The Descent, which he gave me one of the scariest and most awesome movie experience when I saw that The Descent on the big screen. But we're not talking about that. We're actually talking about Hellboy. So we're gonna talk about where this movie fails, usually. I'm not gonna lie by saying that at least let's say that the plot has actually some of the correct ingredients, let's say. I mean the plot because the plot it involves our eponymous character Hellboy, who he is a demon who was raised by a human father during from the Nazi era to present day, and well, Hellboy is technically like this paranormal agent that goes around beating demons for this. Again, this paranormal investigating agency and that's from what I can get, and he has issues with his human father. Kind of like their relationship is between kind of a little bit awkward between a bratty kid, a bratty young man, and a human. I'll get to that just in case. But the big case in the movie is that they're trying to stop this Arthurian demonic enchantress known as the Blood Queen, played by Mila Jovovich, who in the age of King Arthur, she was cut in 7 parts and divided into regions into different regions of England. Yeah, this movie is coming. This movie it takes place in Britain. So there's this pig demon who wants revenge on Hellboy, and in order to have his revenge, he is collecting the 7 parts of the Queen of Blood, and it's up to Hellboy to stop her. That's basically it. Well, it kind of sounds interesting. It kind of sounds interesting in my perspective because I do like Arthurian legends in a way. But you had to sit through a lot of messy scripts because here's how the narrative of the movie comes off. At first it kind of flows here, then it kind of slows very, very slowly. Then we get an action scene, and then we cut to the other side of the spectrum of like someone, the village is plotting something. Then we cut to Hellboy, and it feels kind of unrelated. And so on, so on, so on. and so on. It kind of feels like it's someone took the plot of Phineas and Ferb, using 3 plots, and then almost at a bit, and then gradually it begins to merge a little bit. But unlike Phineas and Ferb, sometimes they forget to add some stuff. From what you can get is that the story is a total mess. It's a total mess, and but the biggest crime that this movie has is that in order to advance the story, it is really heavily dependent on exposition lines. It has a lot of exposition in order to try to know the characters. You see, this is a little bit that I kind of don't like about people trying to find new ways to create an origin story. I don't mind creativity on that, but let's face it that an origin story, it always has to start somewhere. Sometimes the basics, if you play the basics well, you can do it very well. I mean, look at Shazam. Shazam was actually an origin story, and it did very well. But in this one, they wanted to play out a little bit like the Deadpool movie, that it takes place in the present, and little by little we put the piece, we see the past. But at least in Deadpool, it only focused on 2 timelines, not Hellboy that it kind of focused on 3 or more timelines, and sometimes the character kind of jump out of nowhere. It's like, hey, I know you, la 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 la, you're from that, yeah. And then it kind of tries to make us buy that there is something. Especially considering that we get expositionary backstory of Hellboy's, well, partners, which is this girl named Alice, who she's kind of like a clairvoyant that, because, well, she had an incident when she was almost kidnapped by the pig demon when she was a baby. Let's say that's the least I could say. Well, it comes off a little bit confusing because, how could I say? For example, when she enters the picture, she almost kind of kills Hellboy. Let's say, I'll leave it like that, and not to drag this on. But then Hellboy, then a couple of scenes later, Hellboy is like, "Oh yeah, I trust her with my life." She was about to almost to shoot you. I mean, where did this happen? And then a few scenes later, we get to see the backstory of her. We also get to see this guy. What was it? What was it called? Hold it on a minute. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna bother right now, but I think it was Damien or Damien or something like that. You know what, I'll put it here because I don't remember the name. It is this Asian guy who knows them in the military, who doesn't trust Hellboy because he's a demon, but at the same time, he is technically kind of like this Jaguar man who when he was the lone survivor of an attack of again another Jaguar man, and he has kind of like where Jaguar impulses. The movie tried to build him up, kind of like trust issues between him and Hellboy, but no, they decided to put those pieces only for the supposed climax of the film. The biggest folly that this movie has in terms of storytelling, I think it comes right on during a part where Mila Djokovic kind of summons her demons just to say her speech, and then kind of like her sisters comes out of nowhere, and one of them was kind of trying to play kind of like a sympathetic card, but it comes out of nowhere, and they just appear in this scene, and that's it. That's honestly, and I was like, okay, where did that come from? Sometimes it is very tricky to build up a character that you want to feel sympathetic and for a little while, but I don't think that it worked there. So and And this also, and because you want to put so much into this movie, it also harms the pacing. Because the pacing, it goes either so fast in which the character just talks because, okay, I'm going to tell you a little bit of the backstory, but we have to keep the plot moving. It goes either fast, or sometimes it feels like it drags on and on and on, so much that I was feeling a little bit bored. Not to mention that there are moments that it tries to be witty and funny, and it's mostly hit or miss. It's very hit or miss, I'm gonna add. So, enough about the script. How's the acting, let's say? The acting, for the most part, I'll say, is okay, I'll say. Nothing very cringeworthy, I must add. I'm gonna say that, what was the name of the actor who plays Hellboy, and boy, sorry about that. It's that I always go to IMDb to, oh yeah, David Harbour. David Harbour, he is, I don't think he was a bad Hellboy. Sometimes there are moments that I question it, and I know that he doesn't have as much charisma as Ron Perlman did on the other Hellboy. But since I haven't seen the other Hellboy movies, I can't judge, unfortunately. So you have to see another reviewer to let me know. You know, maybe if I feel motivated, I will give them a watch. So the other actors were, you know, okay. Maybe I think that maybe the acting from the girl from Dumbo kind of lowered my the bar this year. And honestly, I have nothing against Mila Jovovich. I know that she can be a good actress, but she sometimes picks up some of the questionable films. But look at the bright side. At least she's not acting like the trophy wife for the Resident Evil films. Alright, I think it is time to go a little bit on the elephant in the room, which is none other than the CGI, which I actually have a lot of mixed feelings, I'll say. I already mentioned at the beginning what do I feel about my first impression of the trailer special effects. But here, I gotta say that, again, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. But for quality in movie theaters, it's not that good. It goes a little bit on par as a television movie special effects. I'll give it this. I think there are some parts that they have practical effects, and the practical effects are actually really good. And the vision in it is actually admirable. I only kind of because sometimes when it's very angelic or very demonic, I kind of feel like I admire that kind of art. Oh yeah, let me tell you, for something that is Hellboy, is really, really gory, but really bloody. I know they told me that the Guillermo del Toro Hellboy series is kind of like PG-13 safe. This one they pushed the R rating. There's blood, there's gore, there are people getting ripped apart, there's a lot of demonic killing, decapitations, so on, so on, so on. And if you see it a little bit as a B movie, you're gonna feel entertained. A little bit because I'm a little bit sick for that. I was kind of entertained. It's kind of like a sadistic glee, I'll say. I like it when they push it, a little bit. But I can see when practical effects and CGI has its conflicts. Let's take, for example, some of the practical effects for the static ambient. They look good, and honestly, Hellboy itself doesn't look too bad. He kind of, although it's not really special, I'll say. He kind of looks like anyone who do an even better cosplay of Hellboy. But sometimes when the CGI shows up, mostly on the other demons, mostly the pig, they really look outdated or somehow kind of cartoonish, very cartoonish. This kind of proves where the CGI fails when you don't do it right, or you don't have enough budget or experience for that. I don't mind I seen worse, but I don't know. I just kind of feel conflicted about it. And sometimes it's very noticeable. Probably, in my opinion, the worst CGI effects comes with the when the character turns into this Jaguar man. Because the Jaguar really does kind of doesn't feel like it blends to the scenery. There are indeed action scenes on the movie. I'll say they're meh. I'm not very sure. I'll say at least as when there's a lot of bloody moments. It's kind of there, kind of for the shock value, which again I'm not against. Exploitation films kind of do that, or B movie list that they try to do that. And again, I kind of feel that I admire some of the moments that they try to push. I mean, one of the first action scenes with Hellboy, it involves him battling giants that kill off the kind of like the Osiris group people who try backstab Hellboy. And the first scene that the giants appear, they are eating their corpses and ripping apart the survivors, kind of like a demonic barbecue. That I will admit that is nasty, um, and well, they didn't want it to go so much for shock value because some of the more grittier scenes they kind of reserve it in some key moments. But mostly, I wish they could have pushed it a little bit more during the climax because the demonic part of the climax, they just appear, the demons appear, they wreak havoc on London, and that's it. Which is again, the design of the demons they look kind of interesting, I'll say, and the way they kill the people are kind of interesting. Oh, look at me saying something like that. Oh, but prepare to that because I will say that cover your ears if you don't like to hear gross stuff like that. But probably my favorite demon design and how it looked and how it was so ridiculously gory is that we get this few second scene of this gigantic demon who walk on stilts, but the stilts has a lot of bodies skewered into it, and it keeps walking with this pile of this pile of bodies. They were skewered like a chuso. That is nasty, I admit it, but for a movie, horror scene is kind of awesome, I must admit. And what else I can talk about the movie? Well, I'm not gonna complain a lot about the musical score. That it tries to be very edgy with rock music and inappropriate music because I'm not kind of this kind of guy. Oh yeah, another thing about the special effect is that probably you might feel grossed out about the effects of the clairvoyant Alice, which she's also a spirit medium. There are two scenes that involve her channeling a spirit. While creative, you can see the mishmash of special effects in which the spirit of the dead they burst out of her mouth like a giant humanoid slug, and it stays there with the shape of the one that died. That one I could say that is the lowest lowdown of special effects that you're gonna see on the hell on this movie, let's say. What else there is to say? the chemistry and the charm of the character doesn't feel like it because again they suffer by a script that doesn't give enough time to feel us warm up to the characters. So it's charmless and rocky as you can get. But nevertheless, that's the whole issue that I have with Hellboy. Do I hate it? Well, I don't hate it as much as many people try to hate it. I don't feel exactly too much love to the movie because I can see where it fails. I can see the failures. I've seen worse movies than that. This one I'll say that is kind of like a nice try, but you didn't try hard enough, or you went through a lot of problems. I don't mind if they made another reboot for Hellboy in order to try for the third time, because according to what I've seen, it's not doing so many. It's not doing so many favors. Some. That's it. I'll have to say. So. Oh hell. Well, that's nothing to say. Go to hell.